Welcome everyone to Things Around 8. Dear friends, in this video we will talk about what Nicolas Maduro may do in Venezuela after the presidential elections on July 28th. And if you are not yet subscribed to the channel, subscribe now and activate the notification bell so you don't miss any news. Anyone who has been following the news coming out of Venezuela is well aware of the serious tensions surrounding the presidential election scheduled for July 28th. It all started many months ago, with Nicolas Maduro beginning the process of removing his main political opponents, especially Maria Corina Machado, whose right to run for office was revoked for 15 years by the courts controlled by Maduro. In addition to being hunted, Maria Corina was persecuted and attacked several times, with many of her advisors and members of her campaign team having been arrested by Maduro. Next came Corina Iores, her political successor, who was prevented from registering on the government website due to a mysterious problem that affected only her. Other opposition candidates were also prevented from participating in a classic maneuver of autocratic and dictatorial regimes. Exactly what happened in the presidential elections in Russia in March 2024, with Putin winning with almost 90% of the votes, after removing all his main opponents. But despite all the persecution, Edmundo González Urrutia managed to run as a candidate with Maria Corina, despite being hunted, mobilizing the Venezuelan opposition to support him. As a result of this, with just a few days to go until the elections, many polls indicate a lead of more than 60 points for Edmundo González's candidacy, an advantage so large that it led Maduro to make a serious threat, saying that if he does not win the elections, there will be war and a bloodbath in Venezuela. Independent news sites were blocked, with Maduro launching attacks even against loyal allies such as Lula da Silva. In response to the threat of bloodshed and war, Lula said he was worried, with Maduro saying at a rally that if anyone is worried, then they should just drink some chamomile tea. Maduro then attacked the Brazilian electoral system, leading the TSE, which had been invited to monitor the elections in Venezuela, to decline the invitation. Not even Alberto Fernandez, former president of Argentina and one of the greatest representatives of the South American left, escaped Maduro's wrath, who disinvited him from monitoring the elections after the former Argentine president expressed concern about the threat of war. Before that, Maduro had already banned observers from the European Union from monitoring the electoral process, which means that, at this point, the presidential elections in Venezuela will take place without any independent international monitoring. With polls indicating Maduro's defeat, what could happen if he is effectively defeated at the polls? There are several possible scenarios, with one of them being outright electoral fraud. It is important to remember that Maduro fully controls the Venezuelan electoral court, which is responsible for counting the votes. This means that, despite the polls indicating that he will lose the elections, he can simply say that he won. And if anyone disputes this claim, he can say that they are liars attacking the democratic process. In this scenario, Maduro can call on the armed forces to take control of the streets and suppress the demonstrations, all under the pretext of defending the results of the polls, which, as I said, he can easily manipulate. But if the polls really represent the popular will, Maduro may not be able to manipulate or falsify the votes against his candidacy as much. In this scenario, the electoral court, even if controlled by him, would have no other option but to announce his defeat. This leaves Maduro with only one option: to claim that the opposition committed fraud and to take power by force, which is exactly what he promised, which would be a military uprising and a war to prevent the opposition from winning. As I said in a recent video here on the channel, Nicolas Maduro has managed to fully equip the Venezuelan armed forces, in addition to handing out numerous promotions, making Venezuela the country with the largest number of generals in the world. Maduro has involved his commanders and officers in the Los Soles cartel, an organization accused of shipping hundreds of tons of drugs to the United States via the Caribbean. In doing so, Maduro has achieved two important goals. He has ensured a steady flow of money into the pockets of these commanders and, just as importantly, he has directly involved these military men in an international trafficking organization. This means that if Maduro is overthrown or simply defeated in the elections, all of these military commanders will no longer earn millions of dollars and could be arrested, tried and convicted for the crime of international trafficking. Many of them are even risking extradition to the United States, with the U.S. Department of Justice offering $1 million rewards for the arrest of these men. Therefore, these military men know that as long as Maduro is in power, no one will be able to touch the multi-million-dollar Venezuelan international drug trafficking business. This acts as a great and powerful incentive for them to do everything they can to prevent the fall of the current regime. This clearly shows that the Venezuelan armed forces are 100% on Maduro's side and are simply waiting for the order to act to prevent his fall from power. We must not forget that the rigging of Venezuelan institutions did not begin with Nicolas Maduro's rise to power in 2013. It began in 1999 with Hugo Chávez's rise to power. Therefore, there have been 25 years of corruption and state rigging in Venezuela, with Chávez and then Maduro placing in strategic positions precisely the people they know they can count on in the event of a threat to the regime. A perfect example of this is the Supreme Court, which was responsible for the 15-year suspension of Maria Corina's electoral rights. Every court, every police station, every military barracks, every state-owned company or public department has, at its head, a person who has sworn loyalty to Maduro and who is profiting greatly from it. This goes to show that removing him from power will not be easy and that the future of Venezuela, which was already not very promising, has become even darker. And if you are not yet subscribed to the channel, subscribe now and activate the notification bell so you don't miss any news.